Welcome to SolFul Connections, where we skip the small talk and head right into the soul talk. I'm Amanda Solar, and each week we share the kinds of stories that remind us we're not alone. It's about being human, raw and unfiltered, just real talk. Let's connect.
Connection. Let's talk about connection.
So today I have with me Vishrant, who is an enlightened mystic, a spiritual teacher. I have read a little bit. I am new to you, Vishrant, and I am intrigued, and I have a lot of questions. But I'm going to start by saying, first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here.
It's lovely to be here.
And
It's lovely to meet you.
thank you. Likewise. And what is lighting you up these days? What is making you feel joy?
I feel profound contentment for no reason whatsoever all day long, every day. And this is a result of enlightenment or awakening in a spiritual sense. The thing that used to get miserable left. It just departed 27 years ago. And I experience a great deal of bliss, a great deal of happiness, but I don't experience any misery. None, no suffering whatsoever.
Well, I'm kind of going to work backwards because this is one of those questions it pops into my head whenever I'm meeting somebody who is living a life of kind of unwavering devotion to something. What I'm always wanting to understand, because I have moments and times of what feels like unwavering devotion to something, but it mystifies me, Vishrant, how this can be perpetual. Do you mind kind of talking about that?
Yeah. I gave my life to truth or beingness or God, whichever you want to call it, completely 27 years ago. And Vishrant, the person, the I, did not survive the experience. And so my whole life is in service of truth or God or beingness, whatever you want to call it. I work probably 70 to 80 hours a week, and I just love taking care of people. It's my heart's desire. And I live what's called the noble path, which in Buddhism is the path of the heart.
Were you always like this deep down? I mean, I know that you've lived a life and I want to explore that, but when you think of yourself as like a little boy, when you kind of remember that Vishrant, that was, I guess, the I, was he like that? Was he service oriented?
Heck no.
No.
Not at all. He was a little tyrant. He was what was considered an uncontrollable child.
Really?
And he grew up to be quite a rebel and then ended up on the streets in the gangs, running a gang, a street gang, a motorbike gang. And then he went into business and did really, really well in business until he discovered that there was such a thing as heart or love. And in that discovery, he found that he was broke, not financially, but of heart, of what he had considered the most important thing in the world, love. And so when he realized that he was broke, he tried to find heart, and he found that his business and the way he'd been built was in the way. And so he'd been built as a war machine. And as a businessman, he was a war machine. And so one day I went into my offices and I handed my companies over to my staff completely, everything, including 14 offices of furniture. and took my shoes off and started walking around Australia in search of my heart. I was 34 years old, and I found my heart, and then I decided to go into service, so I went back to school and trained as a naturopath and psychotherapist so I could have some tools that I could help people with.
Okay, there's a lot of things popping up with me, and I do want to talk about that walk, and I do want to talk about like any similarities between gang life and business life. But I want to touch upon something that's been kind of cropping up in conversation, not only on the podcast, but even just friends and me. I have 3 daughters. I don't have boys. And, we've been talking a lot about just history and men in history. And it just caught my attention when you talked about war, and there's just something about the way that I don't know if it's society. I don't know if it's the way we're raising boys. I don't know what it is. I know what it was. Somebody said to me, why is there not more vulnerability in business? Why is there not more kindness? Why are we even setting it up like it's hard to run and get your kid from school? And I said, I think it's because like men set it up. I think that might be why. Can you speak to that at all?
I think it's the way we're trained at school. I really do. I think we're trained, we're put into competition from grade 1, and we're trained to compete with other people and to beat them. And this training runs through, this need for success runs through and through and through until you lose contact with your own heart.
Yeah. So you went from being in a gang, which I don't know how you get from such a child, like that's such an amazing journey to go from a childhood that is difficult and you're a rebellious little tyke, and then you land somehow in a gang, and then you somehow end up in running a successful business. Can you just talk for just a brief second how that transition happened?
Yeah, I can. When I was at school, I was small. I wasn't big, and I got bullied. And one of the teachers took me aside and decided to teach me martial arts when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And he was teaching me Kung Fu. And what it enabled me to do is become a bit of a warrior in school. And I would protect the Asians, I'd protect the people who were overweight, I'd protect anyone that was picked on. Anyone who was picked on, I'd take the bullies on and have a go at them. Anyway, I was put in the boarding school when I was very young, and at night time, the bullies that I couldn't get during the day, I'd get them during the night. And they found out, they suspected it was me. They'd never found out it was me, but I got put in the tower of the school for 2 years as punishment. 2 years in the tower. And that made me have a real good look at my life, a real good look at my mind, because I was in solitary confinement up in the tower, which was a really high tower. And it didn't get inspected at night time because it was an extra flight of steps to go up for the brothers, the Roman Catholic brothers, to go up and check. And so I used to go out at night time and used to go and play with the Manning boys, which were a gang that operated under a bridge in the Canning Bridge. And I'd go and play with them in a barbecue. That there was some kind of hamburger place there, and I'd go and hang out with them. And that's how I got involved with the gangs, because I was out at night time playing instead of sleeping.
Wow. So then how on earth did you go from that life, which seems like it could have been a life where there's kind of no way out, to running a successful company?
I had intervention. At the age of 19, my girlfriend decided that she would do a course called the Greatness in You seminar with an organisation called Focal, and they took $400 off her to do this course. And I thought she'd been ripped off because $400 back in the 70s was a lot of money. And so I went along with full intention of getting the money back off these guys or beating it out of them. And so I went along and they said to me, why don't you do the course? And I said, I don't want to do the course. I just want the money back. And they said, well, we'll give it to you for free. Why don't you do the course with your girlfriend? And I said, no. Then they said this thing that got me. What are you frightened of? And me, thinking I was a hero, responded to that. I'm not frightened of anything. Why don't you do the course? And so I did the course. And the course involved 4 days in solitude with 25 other people, and it was an encounter group. And during this encounter group, the first thing that happened is the lights went out on the first day and the room was completely dark. Then a spotlight came on and it was on me. And it's something like someone said from across the room, it was a swear word, you get out here. And I came out and they basically I had filled out a psych report to do the course, and they used the psych report to take me apart. Piece by piece by piece by piece. For 12 hours, I was in front of them, and there was 4 of them having a go. Anyway, right at the end of it, at the end of the 12 hours, this little old lady was standing next to me, and she said, you know, when I feel into you, all I can feel is a rock. And somehow it broke my heart. That's what she was feeling from me, just a rock. And that changed my whole life, my whole direction of life. I ended up leaving the gang and working for these guys selling their courses. And that was the beginning of a whole different life. That intervention changed me completely. And by the time I was 28, I was retired.
Were you alone? Like, it sounds, I mean, did you not have brothers, sisters, cousins, mother, father, aunts, uncles?
No, I had no support whatsoever.
No support. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. I'm picturing this person, I mean, by himself. That's a lot for somebody so young. To me, 28 is young.
It is young, and it's just that I got into publishing, and I had 40 odd magazines and newspapers and whatever, and they were all successful. And so I had 35 staff members working full time, and it just worked really, really well for me. But at the age of 33, I realized I'd lost my heart and I couldn't find it, because I'd become such a war machine as a businessman.
Yeah.
And I needed to find my heart, because I recognized that all the wealth that I had wasn't worth anything compared to love.
Yeah. That interested me when I saw that you kind of divested yourself of your company so young, because most of us think more means happier, success means happier. If I had more, if I were a success, if I did, this and earned the respect of being a successful entrepreneur, then what's not to be happy? It's such a twist that you're sharing, hey, this wasn't fulfilling me.
No, it wasn't fulfilling me. And what's more, all the people that I used to hang out with who were wealthy, who had been successful, they weren't happy either. They were still miserable. And so it was really clear to me that success and wealth don't equal happiness. What does equal happiness is heart, is love. That equals happiness.
So you decided, I'm going to give away essentially this company, this success. I'm giving away my success. And you
Yes.
did what next?
I gave my company away because I didn't want to sell it because my staff had been with me for 10 years. And if I sold it, they might be put out of jobs or whatever. And so I considered it and thought, no, I'll give them the company. I won't sell it. It was worth quite a lot of money, but I'd rather them have jobs than me have the money. And I was pretty interested in just getting away. And so I hitchhiked around Australia. I moved away from all my friends because all my friends wanted to rescue me because they thought that I'd got into financial difficulty, and I was offered hundreds of thousands of dollars to go back into business. And it wasn't that. I didn't want any money. I didn't go broke. I just got sick of what I was doing. I got sick of serving money, serving success, serving the ego in that way. I just wanted to find heart. And during that period, I had a daughter that was born. And when I held her for the first time, because I was there during her birth, my heart just opened up so beautifully. And I realized that this is the most beautiful thing that can happen. And it wasn't necessarily because of my daughter being in my arms. It was because love was present. And I realized that love can be present if you are open. And it took me 4 years to open up enough, walking around Australia to act and becoming a nobody because I'd become such a big somebody. I had such a big ego over being successful at such a young age. I walked around Australia to become a nobody going nowhere. And I eventually became a nobody going nowhere.
So when you were walking around Australia, well, first of all, when I think of walking around Australia over here in the US, I think of like every kind of scary beast and animal and insect, because that's what we're told. When you were walking around Australia, were you afraid? Were you depressed? Were you just in search of something more? What were you feeling, as though you had lost something? What was the feeling of that?
I was on an adventure, and it was an amazing adventure. And it worked both ways. It worked outside of me and it worked inside of me. So I was on an inward adventure and an outward adventure. And I just was fascinated by it all.
So you were walking around. Where did you sleep? How did you eat?
In the bush. Sometimes I didn't eat. Sometimes I ended up in soup kitchens. Once or twice I ended up at McDonald's or Hungry Jack's eating someone else's meal that they'd left. Because in wanting to become ordinary, in wanting to become a nobody, I had to drop a lot of my pride. I had to become humble.
Yeah.
And it's in humbleness that we find love, in humility. We don't find love when we're this big ego that thinks it's done something in the world. And so I had a plan and I was putting it into action. And it eventually worked. In my way around Australia, I'd wash people's cars, I'd mow their lawns, I'd wash their dishes, I'd maybe cook them a meal. I became a servant of humans because service, for me at least, was the way of the heart. It was the way I expressed my love.
That's really beautiful. I always think about humility, and I think we confuse humility with humiliation. I think that they are very different. But I do think that we conflate the two. And I love your message. I love the message of service, that we don't have to walk around wherever it is. We can be of service every single day. And there's something that's
Absolutely.
kind of powerful in that. So that journey, where did it lead you?
It led me right across Australia about half a dozen times back and forward. And I ended up in a place called Byron Bay, which is 5,000 kilometres from where I lived. And I set up a business, naturopathy business, helping people with their health, and counselling, a counselling service. And when I was there, I had this calling to come back to Perth because I had a daughter here whose mother had left me, but I still had a daughter here, and she was very young, and I felt to leave everything and come back to be her dad. So I did.
So you did.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is this just an innate something within you to be trusting of your inner guide? You know, to say, this is what I'm called to do, so I'm going to do it. I think most people feel calling to do different things at certain times. And I think we've been taught to kind of ignore that for all sorts of reasons. Some are safety, some are being part of a group. How did you come to be a person who trusts that inner voice that says, oh, now you do this. Now you're going here. Now you're coming back.
Comes back to when I was in boarding school, when I was in the tower. I started to get in touch with this inner voice that didn't use words, but it knew which way to go. And I started to listen to it. And in listening to it, it led me to everything I did, including success in business. And it eventually led me to leaving business and walking around Australia, looking for my heart. It's what I call inner knowing. And it doesn't use words, but it just knows which way to go. And you actually have to be pretty quiet to actually hear it, because the mind is so noisy, it's so loud, and inner knowing is so soft and so gentle. But I started following inner knowing, and inner knowing led me to where I am today.
Do you have daily practices that you do, rituals, acts that you maintain that relationship with that inner knowing?
Well, I practice openness, but I don't need to practice it. I am open. I also practice meditation, but meditation is just being aware of what is real, and I don't need to practice it because I am in meditation pretty much all the time. I don't live in my head, I live in reality, and I love reality. I don't like dream. I prefer not to get involved with my mind. I prefer to be in the world.
Okay, so I have to ask, do you watch TV? Do you stream Netflix? Do you eat Cheetos? Like, do you do practices that, do you have guilty pleasures? Do you indulge in what I would consider maybe fun?
Yes, I like coffee. And I've got one sitting here right now that someone's brought for me. I like coffee, and I used to like sugar up until about 2 months ago, and I gave it away because my cholesterol went through the roof, and now I'm on monk fruit. And so my addiction was coffee with sugar. Now I just have coffee.
So what about when you, thinking about my daily life, and I'm comparing it, Vishrant, to your daily life. That's what's happening in my brain right now. And I'm wondering, do you think there are any misconceptions about you? Do you care if there are any misconceptions about you? Do you ever think about what somebody else is thinking about you? Is that part of your world?
Yes, I get a lot of negativity from time to time about what I do and what I am. From different parts of the world, because nowadays I'm a world teacher. I run meetings every night, and sometimes during the day. I'm running one at lunchtime today. And yeah, I get my knockers and my haters because I say things people don't like. I also get knockers because I have this tag of being enlightened, and in spiritual circles, that is a reasonably high position to be claiming. And so I get my knockers with that as well. And it's okay. I don't care. If they get rude on Facebook, if they get rude on YouTube, I just block them.
Absolutely. And it doesn't bother you?
No, not at all. I expect people to be the way they are because I accept life as it is. That's the thing that really changed my life is learning to accept everything as it is rather than going into resistance to everything. And so in acceptance of everything, I can stay happy.
Do you have people or things that serve as inspiration for you?
Well, I basically live the way of the heart. So I have studied Buddhism and I'm a Buddhist teacher. And Gautama the Buddha, he was a model for me. He spent his whole life helping people get free of their suffering, and I've followed suit. So he's an inspiration to me. But Jesus was an inspiration to me as well, because Jesus was a heart teacher, and I've chosen to be a heart teacher. So I guess that you could say that they're models for me.
Would you say that you still have an ego?
No. There's not a sense of anyone talking to you. There's talking, and I can hear it. My mind is registering it, but the I is not there.
Yeah.
The sense of somebody talking is not there. It's gone.
Do you believe that people can lead an enlightened life while being engaged in ordinary existence, I guess I would say? Like, you get up, you eat your breakfast, you go to work, you come home, you make the kids dinner, whatever it is.
Well, I did. I didn't leave my wife or my children. They were born before I woke up. I remained. My wife left me at one point. She came to me about 2 weeks after enlightenment and said, "I've lost my husband, haven't I? He's gone." And I said, "Yes, he is gone, but I'm still here." I being the body and the mind. And I never left. I stayed and took care of them for another 20 years.
That's really, really interesting. Can you explain what I read about where you were lost at sea, and where in your story did that come?
Okay, yeah, I got lost at sea. I took off from Geraldton, which is in West Australia, to the Abrolhos Islands, and a cyclone came in, and somehow I hit something. I was in a very small boat, just a runabout, and I was going 35 miles out to sea, and I hit a bottle in the water, I think, because it went through the hull and the boat started to sink. And at about 35 miles, the boat was going down. And the boat was full of water, and I was in the water with a life jacket on with my partner, who I ended up having a child with because we were rescued. But we didn't think we were going to live because we were being circled by sharks, and we were in the water for 18 hours. We both had hypothermia. But we were rescued at 2 o'clock in the morning by a oil tanker, and in the middle of a cyclone. And so that in itself was an absolute miracle. But when I was in the boat, in the water, I looked across at my partner, and something happened inside of me. I found this magnificent love again. And I realized that this was real, and it was beautiful. And it was because I thought that we were going to die, and that it was my fault because I took her out there, that she was going to die. And it was in this space of regret that I opened right up and experienced this beautiful love, which taught me a lesson about love. Love appears in openness. It doesn't appear in closure. If we really want to perceive love, we have to be wide open. We can experience primal bonding, which is the love we might have for our children or our partner, but it's actually a program of the mind. Love can also be there, real love, but a lot of the time it's just primal bonding, which we have with our friends as well. And we call that love, but it's not real love. Real love is magnificent. It's just to die for. And I felt this real love in the water when I was in the water looking at my partner.
When you say you have to be open to really experience that kind of profound love, are there steps to that? Is there like a
There are.
technique for that?
There are. What I discovered was that a lot of my closures were related to belief systems I had about how life should be. Like, I believed that I shouldn't be lied to. I believed I shouldn't be rejected. I believed I shouldn't be abandoned. I had all these different beliefs, and every time those beliefs were triggered by someone abandoning me or betraying me or lying to me or whatever, I'd contract. And that was in the way, because when we contract, we go into resistance. We're not open anymore. And so my process was removing all belief systems that supported closure in any way, shape or form. And I removed the belief systems by putting doubt in them, because when you put doubt into a belief system, it dies.
Yeah.
And so we go with the one with rejected. How do I know in God's big picture for me and for this other person, I'm not supposed to be rejected? And I can't answer. I got to say, I don't know, which means the doubt has now been put into that belief. And I reinforce it by running the story again about rejection, then putting the doubt in through, how do I know in the big picture of God for me that I wasn't supposed to be rejected by this person? And of course the answer is, I don't know, which is the doubt that destroys the belief.
What about the state of the world, Vishrant? Do you ever, how does that play into your own belief system, your own approach to life? Do you look at, do you read the news? Where does that live?
Every day. And I don't agree with everything that's happening in the world, but I accept it.
Mm.
Because if I don't accept it, I create suffering in myself. And my non-acceptance of what's happening in the world isn't going to change anything in the world. So why would I want to create suffering for myself? I just accept what is. I don't get caught in right, wrong, good and bad. I just see the world, this is what is. This is what is. It's not right, wrong, good or bad, it's what is. And this is a beautiful way to live, because you don't contract, you don't create suffering in yourself. You accept life as it is.
So Vishrant, I like to ask people this question, and I'm so curious if you will have an answer, or if you'll just say to me, no one. But I like to ask people, if somebody said you have the power to sit with 3 people for 3 hours, and they could be people you know, new, or just people from history, but you can sit with them, alive or dead, would you? And if so, who would you sit down with and talk with, and why?
This is going to blow your mind, but my mind is silent. I don't have much interest in talking at all. I talk to encourage people to get free. I talk to teach people how to accept life. My mind is pretty silent. I don't have an interest in talking to anyone, really, except people who are interested in freedom, except people who are interested in truth. Then I have all the time in the world for them.
You know, that answer isn't surprising to me, because as I began to think about asking you, I thought, I bet he's going to say nobody, because I'm getting that sense from you. I really am getting that sense. And it's so unusual. Our brains are just always, they're not designed that way. And you've really, achieved something really unusual. And maybe you come across tons of people like you, but I don't. I come across most people who love and are attached to the noise that they find themselves surrounded by.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Because we're programmed at school to entertain the mind. You know, we're programmed at school to problem solve, and we end up problem solving until the day we die, which is basically living in our heads instead of reality. Because nothing you think about is real. It's all imagined.
Yeah. So when you're talking about love and you're talking about this kind of deep and profound love that maybe people go a lifetime and don't even experience. They might experience attachment or excitement, but maybe they don't experience that kind of love. I don't know. What I'm curious about is, do you feel that same love for everybody? Where does that play in your relationship with the people closest to you? Do you feel the same level of attachment to your closest people that you do with just people in general? Does that make sense, that question to you?
It does. I'm not attached to anything or anyone.
Yeah.
And as far as love is concerned, I love you.
That is fascinating because you know what you're reminding me? And this is going to sound like a strange analogy, but when I have talked to people with addiction, oftentimes one of the barriers to freeing themselves of addiction is that they think, well, life is going to be boring. Life is just not going to be fun. And, you know, I remember even when I was going through Catholic school, I remember when they would talk about heaven and I thought, well, that doesn't sound like fun. You know, I can remember the thinking. So what I'm curious about is, are you having fun? Are you happy? Do you
Heck
laugh?
yeah. I have a lot of fun and I do a lot of laughing.
Yeah.
Yep. I surround myself with people who are interested in truth and I play with them. I just got back from Thailand. I went away with five of my Sangha and we went to Thailand for 9 days. It was great except for the heat and the humidity.
Yeah.
Wrong time of the year to be up there. But it was great. It was great going away and spending time with my friends.
If someone right now is listening and maybe they're feeling a sense of frustration or sadness, I mean, there are all sorts of, you know, uh, challenges that people listening share with me after they listen to a podcast. What would you want them to know? You know, what would you, if you had to whittle
Okay.
it down?
Well, if they are frustrated or sad, there's something they're not accepting because acceptance is the key to freedom. If you're frustrated, there's something that you're thinking of that you're not accepting. If you're sad, there's something that you haven't accepted yet. Acceptance is the key to freedom.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you get on with your day. I'm going to put how people can find you in the show notes. Vishrant, I am so happy that you made time. I feel so privileged to have had this time of learning from you. You are really special, and maybe your incredible life has led you to a place that I don't know. I feel like you've lived 5,000 lifetimes in your one life.
It does feel like that.
I wish all of the best for you, and I feel gratitude. Thank you.
It's been lovely talking to you, Amanda.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. Thank you for being a valued part of the SolFul community. Thank you to William Aronson for writing, recording, and producing the SolFul Connections theme song. And finally, always know you're not alone. We are connected. We're all in this thing together, and you and your story are important. Let's just keep on connecting.